The reign of Pedro I has come to an end. The man who led the Portuguese Empire through the Great Black Plague, the cataclysmic earthquake of 1358, and more recently masterfully handled the geopolitical turmoil as a result of the Great Castilian Betrayal. The buck now passes to a new king, Fernando. How's it, everyone? Welcome back to episode 9 of our Portugal campaign. Last episode was quite dramatic, particularly at the end. King Pedro is dead. Second king under our rule has now perished. On to the third ruler of Portugal, King Fernando. In terms of the Hall of Fame, I think Pedro was probably slightly better than Afonso. Even though Alfonso had better stats, Pedro seemed to do a bit more. Obviously, we ruled him for longer, having started the game with Alfonso being quite old. But Pedro wasn't quite as underwhelming as I was expecting him to be. Now, Fernando, similar to Pedro in the sense that his skills aren't fantastic. He's probably a bit better overall. He's got better diplomatic ability, but he's not so good in terms of admin, and he's all right in terms of military. So, not sure what to expect from him, but we'll see as the game progresses. However, the important and most difficult thing that we are going to need to navigate in the future is the fact that João is in line for the throne. Now, he is basically a moron, and his stats are going to really drag us into the dirt if he does inherit the throne. So there's a very strong argument to now seriously consider trying to get Afonso in line for the throne. But for now, we'll park that thought. Fernando is quite young still, hopefully got at least 20 years or so in him before he kicks the bucket. So for now, let's start focusing on some of the things that he will need to do. Okay, so first things first, we're going to stick our king as the head of the navy yet again, just because it pushes that crown power. I've mentioned it in a previous episode. We are also trying to push a naval focus, which we are progressively doing. We hover over this here, we can see that ruler is an admiral. It gives it plus 10 push, so that makes sense to do so. Otherwise, what things can we do? So, João having a better education, pointless. We can enact Placitum Regium again. Now, as I said before, I think this is a bug because it's supposed to cost 100 religious influence. We only have 48, but the benefit of it, if I just hover over this a second, is that we get 20% crown power. Bit less religious influence and less papal relations, but to be honest, don't really care about that. That was almost exactly the same time and confused me. So we will undermine the papal authority in Portugal, and we also get a prospering monastery. The monastery in Tomar has enjoyed an era of prosperity, during which they have also attracted recognized Catholic scholars. This success affects the rest of Tomar and is helping to bring new wealth to the area. A visit from King Fernando de Borgoña could be advisable and would be a great honour for the monastery. Kind of ironic, as soon as I've undermined the papal states, that we've had some sort of monastery event. So let's have a look. We could visit the monastery himself, get 2.5 legitimacy, or we'll leave them to their own business and get 15% prosperity. Now, the question is, where is Tomar? Quite close to our capital. Control is alright, I suppose. And what is its prosperity? To be honest, I think it's probably better to just leave it to its own devices and get the prosperity push. In terms of diplomatic actions, we do have a few decisions to make. Now, one of the ones that I'm going to do, continuing along the strand of trying to separate Castile from the rest of its allies, is actually isolating Aragon from Castile. I'm going to do that because that's going to basically leave them on their Todd, leave them on their own for the non-British listeners, and if they try and attack us, now we've got Aragon on our side as well. So we called in a few favours, got them to break off the alliance with Castile. That is great news. And the last thing that we need to look at in the immediate sense is these possible institutions. So if I flip over to the institution screen, we can see that we have done a really effective job of embracing the institutions, particularly vis-a-vis Castile. So that means we have a slight edge and technological advantage compared to them. So the main thing that's holding us back, as you'll probably already be able to tell, is the stability cost. I don't think it's worth taking the stability hit if it's going to push us into the negative. So we want to try and build up our stability a little bit in order to afford these institutions. We are getting Fernando 2.0 onto pushing stability, so that will build up over time. We're getting approximately one every 3 months, so it's not fantastic, but it's something. And likewise, we've also got Beatrice pushing innovative, and the reason for that is, if I pop over to the value screen, innovative actually comes with a discount cost to embracing institutions. So everything at the moment is pushing us towards trying to embrace these institutions and just keep the ball rolling with respect to over researching and being ahead of the game versus Castile. So for the next couple of months, I'm probably just going to fiddle with some of the trades, try and maximize our income, try and grow our income, maybe make a few purchases, build a few things within the local economy, and once we're ready, we'll start buying these institutions. We'll go for banking first and then Renaissance. Reason for banking first, if I pop over here to the tech tree and I go in here to banking, if we go down here we can see we've got route to the Indies, exploration, time modifier -10%, not monumental but decent. Perhaps better, or more importantly though, is a unique tech for Portugal, which is pursuing the wave. So we get an extra 0.1 per monthly progress, which is huge, and we have a higher colonial range. So if I quickly go to our exploration, you can see we're getting 0.2 at the moment, so it would be a 50% increase to our exploration speed, which is just enormous. And then coupled with that, at some point in the future, we will hopefully try and spawn a new world in Portugal and be the front runners for the colonial race. So got a general idea of what we're trying to do. We've got a strategy. It's just about trying to make sure that it plays out the way that we're planning. But of course, there will be obstacles along the way. Looking at our building maintenance here, I can see that our most expensive building by a long shot really is the library. The reason for that is because books are quite expensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build some scriptoriums, I think, to try and lower the cost of books on the whole, because that will be better for us. Now, where could we do it? Lisbon seems okay, because it's the capital, we get better bang for our buck. Could probably do Porto. Where's the best production efficiency? Coimbra? I think we'll do one in Santarém. One in Santarém. Oh, and that's all our money, so we'll do those two. Okay, and we've researched formal city rights. So we'll get a discounted cost to founding cities and towns. That is very useful. Generally, I think the plan is to effectively make towns and or cities all along the coast, because we're a naval focus. You can see that the maritime presence is increasing over time, and also our control along the coast is generally better than inland. So over time, what we're going to try and do is build towns and cities, particularly close to the capital and along the various different nodes that are useful. So for example, here I think is a good place, Setúbal, because the fish resource isn't so great and the control is quite high, so it would be a good place to upgrade into a town, but it is quite expensive, so we can't do it just yet. Tech. So given that we've just got the new institution for professional armies, naturally I think it makes sense to research the first tech in that tree. The modernization of our armies is largely dependent upon the maintenance of our recruitment and organization centers. We must strive towards preserving a clear and robust military organization, cutting waste and redundancy. So 10% army cost reduction. I'm not entirely sure if we're spending too much on the army, 2.36, so it would cost, what, 0.2? So it's not nothing, but it's not a massive saving either. Attracting the right people. Who's this guy? Sebastião Crato. He's malevolent, so I don't know if we actually want this guy, but anyways. By assisting our nobility in confining the serfs to their lands, we have greatly enriched the landed aristocracy. A wealthy nobility is one that can devote time to life's higher pursuits, and the lesser sons of any house of respect will count a great number of loyal and able artists, administrators, or other men of quality among their scions. Some are quite eager to pay the state back for the service it has done to their families. One of these, Sebastião Crato, has recently arrived at court to offer his services to the kingdom. Excellent news. Excellent news. And we can also remove the star for Pedro. We'll build a glass guild in Porto. We'll increase the tailors guild in Lisbon. and also the Tools Guild as well. Okay, I think it's time to embrace the institution. It's not quite covered by our stability buildup, but to be honest, I'm a bit impatient, so I'm just going to buy it so that we're ahead of it. I've been keeping an eye on Castile, and they are slowly building up exposure to the institution, so I just want to make sure that we're ahead of them. So we'll embrace banking first, and we have fully embraced banking. Okay, so with our diplomat, what we're going to do is we are going to send a character to the Prussian Crusade. I don't think it matters which one. We'll do Teutonic just because they look the biggest, I suppose. I don't think it makes a big difference. And we will send Sebastião. I was trying to send Joao actually, but because we can't send him and this guy's malevolent, we'll stick him off in the Russian Crusade. We'll build a temple in Viana do Castelo. We've got them in all of our other towns, but it supports extra control. If I hover over this here, you can see max control 5%, max literacy is also good, and less unrest, which hopefully won't be a problem. So we'll build a temple there, and we've also got the burghers requesting privileges. So the burghers have grown increasingly resentful of the power of the nobility, same as me, buddy, and particularly their lack of opportunities in the higher ranks of government. Their only route into power is to marry into poor but well-titled families or to pry open positions in government circles by demanding greater privileges from the king. So, we could grant them the trade centre sponsorship, which gives increased market attraction. It's not that good, I suppose, in this particular example. Or we could improve the relations with the nobility. Such privileges are for the nobility. Okay, I've had to think about it, and what we're going to do is we are actually going to give them the trade centre sponsorship. Our market attraction is better than both Castilian markets, and given that I'm still quite irritated at them for betraying our allegiance, what we can try and do is maybe pick off a couple of their frontier provinces and bring them into our market, which effectively brings us more money and reduces their coffers as well. So we will give them the trade centre sponsorship privilege. We also have a government or Cortes Gerais. So we'll have a look at this and I'll comment on it in just a second. So what I'm thinking of doing is increasing ties to neighbours, which will basically increase our standing with Castile. I'm not actually that bothered about this particular debate or issue. What I wanted to do was pick the one with the highest support and then try and leverage this into an opportunity to change some laws. Because if you watched last episode, I went to change a law and I ran out of time, and I haven't changed it since because the opportunity hasn't presented itself. So we could probably get to the point of being able to command a law change now because we've got almost the amount of support we need. So it looks like Fernando is benevolent, which is quite nice. It seems to be a good man. Extra loyalty to subjects, we don't have any just yet, but that might be something that would be quite good. It also means that the AI is less aggressive. I think that's actually if the AI itself is controlling Fernando, which obviously isn't the case in this example. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the nobility lessened levy obligations. I was thinking about trying to ride it out and get an event, but I fear that if I change the law, which I'm going to do now, and I change specifically this mining law, which is currently on nobility controlled mining, makes them a little bit happier, but these two pushes are terrible. Pushing towards aristocracy, pushing towards traditional economy. If I flip over, however, to burgher controlled mining, it pushes to plutocracy and capital economy and a few other bits and bobs as well. So I'm thinking potentially if I flip this, it might piss off the nobility. And whilst we're in the parliament, they obviously have a greater recovery with 1.2%. So we'll see now if that actually happens. No. But we have now flipped the law. So fantastic. Now I'm not really that bothered about this actually passing, to be honest, so we can probably just leave it. And we have a few things to look at. So life in Lisboa. I may have read this before. The options are to pay a little bit of money, or they'll have to endure and they lose 5% support. Now, I think we're going to take the stability hit on this law change because I don't really care about improving the relation with Castile. so there's no point spending the money to preserve a 20% support. They can endure like the rest of us. And we've researched professional armies, so we need to pick a new research as well. We'll go for banking. Money lending is as old as time, but is not without risks. We can minimize said dangers if we institutionalize those practices and see that money is loaned under controlled and fair stipulations. So we do have quite a wide spread of different texts to research now, but if I pop in here, what I am going to be pushing for, it's quite confusing, is down here to pursuing the waves. I think, is it worth even prioritizing that? Possibly. We might go here, merchants and trade, for better naval range and trade range. Yeah, so we'll do this one next. What was it called? Merchants and trade. The patterns of trade have been seriously disrupted, possibly due to plagues and pandemics. Now trade is slowly beginning to recover. And we will finally do route to the Indies as well, and then we'll pick some more after that. Trade with the Far East is essential to maintaining our way of life. However, the land route is slow and costly. If we could find a route over the seas, it would open up many business opportunities for our merchants. And the issue fails when we take a stability hit, but we were expecting that, so no worries there. We'll build another tools guild in Lisbon, and then possibly something in Santarém as well. What could we build? Maybe carpenters? Yeah, we'll build another carpenters guild. And finally, we'll also upgrade the lumber in Torres Novas. So there's a war going on in the Med. Aragon, Sicily, and Tunis, I believe, are having at it. So Aragon's obviously on the Sicilian side. Tunis is up against them. Does look like Tunis is probably going to win, actually, looking at this. Philip has returned. Oh my god, too much is happening. Philip d'Artois has returned, and we have discovered the Azores. Also, we've got some saints performing miracles. So what's going on here? Some particularly devout members of the clergy and laity within our lands have dedicated themselves to helping the poor and healing the sick across our kingdom. We are now hearing that the communities these pious individuals visit are starting to call them saints for their actions, with some even believed to have performed miracles. So we could get 7 stability, or we could get clergy. We'll take the stability. We have been truly blessed. And I think immediately what we're going to do is create a colonial charter here. No, we can't afford it. We'll create a colonial charter as soon as we can, start colonizing these lands. Now, I don't think they're particularly good by way of natural resources. It's all fish, but it's a launching pad for further exploration and discovery. We've got the money now to create the colonial charter, so we are going to do that. We're going to start sending some people over to colonize the Azores. Our people are flocking to settle this virgin territory. We're going to marry João to Joanna de Barcelona because her stats are really good, basically, and hopefully try and balance out the idiot in him. And then with Afonso, we're also going to marry him to someone, possibly Sicily, I think could be a good shout. Yeah, we'll do it. I hope this doesn't potentially bring us into their war, but we'll marry maybe Elizabeth because she's 19 versus the 52-year-old. So Elizabeth de Barcelona. We've researched banking. Okay, and we'll embrace the Renaissance as well. It's quite cheap now because we've mostly discovered it. Let's just let that month tick over, see if it reduces the cost at all. A little tiny bit. So yeah, we'll embrace the Renaissance as well. So in terms of enlightenment, we are actually one of the more enlightened places in the world, at least. Europe seems to be pretty embraced, but versus Castile, doing well. Naive relative. This sounds good. A close member of King Fernando, Crown Prince João, has proven utterly naive and keeps telling foreigners vital information publicly. This is technically treason, but executing a member of the royal family might cause unrest. Ooh. Perfect. This is time to get rid of the idiot. Amazing. Goodbye, João. Well, that solved that problem quite neatly. So now our son, Alfonso, is next in line to be the king. I'm so chuffed with that. I can't believe that just happened. Alright, we will start an exploration in the West African coastline, if it allows me to. There we go. We will do it from Lagos, and we will send Philippe again. Okay, we'll build a scriptorium in Santarém, and we'll build something else that's profitable in Lisbon. So what could we build? Spinners Guild seems okay. Maybe Tailor's Guild. We'll build another Tailor's Guild. And just for good measure, we will also build a die maker as well. Censorship shields ally. As of late, many outspoken members of our society, some with the means of producing and distributing scandalous pamphlets across the realm, have begun to be rather critical of our ally, Aragon. However, our censorship policy allowed us to swiftly confiscate and destroy all these damaging works, protecting our ally from having to react to our people's opinions. So they better be thankful and get a bit of an opinion, or they can thank us through other means. We'll take the favour. I've spotted a small problem with our strategy to colonise Cape Verde and use that as a springboard for future exploration, and that is it's outside of our naval range. For now, it's a problem. However, we are researching merchants and trade, which gives us an extra 250. We've been trying to identify exactly if we have enough. I think it's going to be just too short, because this is 1248. So if we get 250, we'll be able to go here. I don't think we'll quite make it over here. So we might need to try and colonize some islands here. This is actually Madeira, which is Portuguese. And this is the Canaries, which you probably know is Spanish. So it might be worth actually doing an exploration here and trying to colonize so that we don't get tripped up by that in the future. It doesn't actually allow us to cancel the exploration. We haven't actually spent anything yet, I don't think. So I was going to try and cancel it and try and explore here, but it doesn't allow us to do it. So we will explore this anyway, and then probably loop back and explore here. I would consider doing both at the same time, but that will wreck our monthly budget, so we'll just do one after the other. That gives us a bit of time to colonize the Azores as well. I'm going to build a library in Vienna because all of these buildings support our research efforts. By building the library in Vienna, it will increase the literacy, and maximum literacy actually increases research speed. Becalmed. After several days of low winds, the expedition has barely made any progress through the West African coastline. Philippe d'Artois prays that the winds flare up again soon. We have lost a lot of time. Out of interest, how much progress have we made? So we've lost all of our progress and then some, which sort of implies that he's back in Portugal. Okay, we'll build a Spinners Guild in Evora because we've got a good production efficiency there because of the wool, which I think is here. Yeah, so we'll build a Spinners Guild there. And we'll probably build one other thing in Porto as well, which I will have a look at now. Maybe another Tailor's Guild. So it looks like Tunis are actually giving the Sicilians a bit of a smack. I was surprised by that. I thought it would go the other way, but massively in favour of Tunis at the moment. Alright, now that we've completed the institutions for the next 100 or so years, we'll flip Beatrice off of encouraging innovative, because we don't really need to do that anymore. And we will increase development where? Extremadura seems to make the most sense. Just completely push the capital. I think it makes sense to just keep trying to get Lisbon as strong as possible. So we'll do development there. And we've also had an event here. Local nobility's power grows. Through intrigue at court, skillful alliances and plenty of opportunism, a group of local nobility have built up a strong power base in Mirandela, right to the north here with the border with the Spanish or the Castilians. If we do not deal with them now, they may support one of the various pretenders to the kingdom in the hopes of even greater influence, though reducing their power will prove difficult given their influence and the large force of retainers that they maintain as part of their own private army. So we could ignore them and get extra satisfaction, or we could destroy the toll castle. Now, toll castles are quite bad, I think, and this is kind of the only way you can get rid of them. The reason that they're bad is because... why? It costs money to maintain that I think we have to pay for, and also it encourages extra food consumption. I don't really think it matters in this case. The control is terrible, so it's not like we're losing out too much on it, and I don't really want to spend the stability. Yeah, so we will curtail their power. No, I lie. We will ignore them and take a bit of a legitimacy hit. Okay, we've researched merchants and trade, so now is the time to figure out if we can actually get there. I don't actually think we can, because we haven't discovered it yet, but maybe. It's very close. It's very, very close, but maybe. We'll have to see. Family secret. The heir is now getting involved in some trouble. The first time that the Bourgogne brush it off, but when it happens a second and a third time, one does begin to wonder. Why are people laughing when they think no one can hear them? After some investigation, an answer is finally obtained from a chambermaid. It appears that Crown Prince Afonso has been running about town in a most unchristian fashion, and that the royal family is now becoming the laughingstock of Europe. Does that mean he's running around naked? What does that mean? Okay, so our options are to lose 20 prestige, Jesus, or to lose 5 legitimacy again. The de Bourgogne do not concern themselves with such trivial matters. I think the legitimacy is much easier to restore than the prestige, so we'll take that. What is little Afonso up to? He was supposed to be the smart one. We'll send him off to join a foreign order to teach him a lesson. It's also just generally quite good. It gives them a bunch of extra stats. So off he goes to the Order of St. George. I'm intentionally not picking any order with Castile because they are my mortal enemies. Alright, update time. Beatrice has had 2 kids, Afonso and Sancho. And let's have a look and see if they're any good. So Afonso's shrewd. I mean, that is terrible hair. And Sancho is ambitious. Interesting. Alright, so we've reached 10 stability, and one of the things I was going to change was our employment system. Cost 10 stability, but I was going to change it to infrastructure first, and then most profitable. Pushes capital, pushes communalism, but also it gets away from something that pushes traditional. So 2 birds, 1 stone really, so we'll implement infrastructure, then most profitable. And we've also had an event. Big guilds fall short. A guild in Azores has found itself with insufficient funds to cover the damages of a shipment lost at sea and is facing the possibility of disbandment. Under normal circumstances, this is hardly a concern of the state, but the burghers are asking for a bailout, demanding that the government pay for the loss in order to maintain the stability of the region. Allowing the guild to close could greatly upset the social order of Evora. Evora is obviously quite an important place for us. We'll take the loan out. We'll take the loan out and we will get the extra satisfaction. Simply because we've just spent the stability, this will push us into the negative, and losing a big amount of satisfaction is bad. We might be able to tax them a bit more. Okay, for some reason we took out a loan for 70. Not sure why that is, but we'll pay it off as soon as we can, which will cost us roughly 100, so in about 6 months or so we should be able to pay it off, I think. Merchant fractures. So I think I've read this before. I just did read it all out. But when I got to the end I realised I had read it before, so I'm not going to read it again. We can get some stability, lose some gold. We can trade legitimacy for prestige. Not going to do that. Or we could gain 5 prestige and lose some satisfaction. We'll do that because we've just given them a bailout. We have successfully researched route to the Indies, so that reduces the cost of explorations going forward, and now we're in a position to pick the next research. Now, I'm probably going to shift to a different tree. I'm going to come to the professional armies one and get recruitment speed, because I noticed that we're just not getting the manpower to fulfill the ranks in our army, which is obviously going to be a big problem if we do actually have to send troops to any battles. So we'll do organised recruitment. The development of professional armies has increased our military capabilities. To sustain this, the state will need to improve its capacity for recruiting soldiers as well. And then I think after that, we will go for standardized coins to get a little bit of extra minting capacity. As wealth is created, more and more mints appear. While we have lived with many different currencies for years, official standards have to be set in order to avoid fraud caused by using lesser quantities of precious metals or by rasping the edges of those coins. Got a little bit of money from Aragon through calling in some favours. Right, we're going to build a charcoal kiln in Salvaterra. It's not going to employ immediately. However, when I was looking at the market, if I quickly jump here, I can see that we've got a break-even supply and demand, but we're actually importing 0.8, and one charcoal kiln conveniently produces 0.8 of coal. So that should basically free up the burger's capacity to import some other stuff once it's fully employed. Alright, and I think we're going to modernise the navy a little bit, so we're going to build a couple of Mediterranean galleys. We'll build one in Faro and one in Porto. And we'll also build another weaponsmith due to the high production efficiency in Lisbon. Alright, I reckon we jump Beatrice off of development and onto increasing control. And we can do Ribatejo first. And we'll just oscillate between this middle area, just to increase the control in some of our closer towns. Maybe even up along the coast here, because that will basically give us more income. And it looks like we've actually founded our first foreign colony in the Azores, which is awesome. And we've had an event with respect to the Prussian Crusade. So Sebastião, that malevolent guy we sent off there a few years ago, the glorious Crusaders of the Baltic proclaimed their Prussian crusade for the glory of Christ. Many men heeded its call. One of them was the pride of the Portuguese crown, Sebastião Crato. Blood was spilled, prestige was gained, and honour was defended, while the infidels and wicked pagans cowered in fear before his holy fury. Now he has returned to the loving arms of his magnificent kingdom. Cool, so he's just much better by way of stats. So I'm still a bit wary of him because of this trait, but I think it only comes into play if he is actually a leader. So we've done a good job of basically improving his stats over time. Santa Cruz das Flores, the first of the colonized islands of the Azores. You can see here in a summary breakdown of the location, it's very unhappy. It's not got much connection to the mainland, it doesn't have much control, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that we really want to do is try and put a little bit of money into supporting its growth and development. First thing to do then is to build a settlement. This represents creating a new settlement with basics such as stores, basic construction support and trade posts to encourage migrants to the location. Extra population growth, extra migration attraction naturally makes sense. We're just going to want to try and promote and encourage people to live in Santa Cruz. Divine revelations. In reflection of our society's spiritual ways, King Fernando has momentarily attained a higher level of consciousness and gained a divine vision showing him that he must improve before the country improves. He is no longer who he once was. His spiritual experience has driven him to become better, as he must fulfill his vision to see the kingdom of Portugal rise above. Cool, so heavens bless us seems to be the best option. We get a 1 in 3 chance of gaining a special trait. Pushes us towards spiritualist, which for now I think we're okay with. So we will do that. And what did we get? We got another ruler trait, which is a fierce negotiator. This ruler is a fierce negotiator. We will have an easier time convincing mercenary captains to fight for our cause. Oh, that's a bit lame, actually. Okay, so the 2 ships are complete. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring them together. And we're going to send them out to the Azores to increase the naval presence here. Oh, interestingly enough now, it looks like the Castilians are trying to colonize the Azores. And we'll appoint our nephew, which I think is Philippe's son actually, to be the naval leader, the admiral of this smaller army. We might try and rename them as well. The Azores fleet. Oh god, we've had a few things come up, so I'm going to slow down the speed. So Alfonso, this is our son, is now 16. Oh no, sorry, I lied, it's our nephew. I don't know why, but they've all got very similar names, so it makes it quite difficult to keep track of who's who. But that's okay, and England have asked for money. Okay, we can accept. So they received the money. It's a bit annoying that we've had to spend it on them, but it does allow us, I think, to start improving or currying favours again. We've had good government policies, widespread support from the commoners and nobility for our current policies. They have been magnified well beyond their actual efficiency as proof of the government's goodwill and interest in the welfare of our kingdom. So we can get some stability, legitimacy, or a bit of money. I think we'll go for the stability in this case. I'm trying to build it up a little bit because I want to start revoking some privileges from the various different estates. And also, using some of our money, we're going to build a market village in Santa Cruz, simply because having built the settlement, I can see that it cannot function without market access. So this should help to connect it to the Lisbon market. Religious art sponsorship. Emboldened by our religious censorship laws, the clergy have begun sponsoring the creation of art across the country. As a sign of unity between the Kingdom of Portugal and its clergy, they have donated a piece directly to the King's collection. Oh, that's good. So we have a piece of art. So I think is this, the Cluttered Eye. Now I'm not really sure why, but the maritime presence isn't increasing. It should, I thought, have increased by an additional 0.24 per month on top of the 0.08. But it doesn't seem like it is. So I'll keep an eye on this and see if maybe we need to take some action, but my understanding was that it should help to support that. Okay, and now we've come time to do another parliament. So I think I'm actually going to go for promote castle works, and I think we're going to build a fort. I'm a little bit concerned about having such a unguarded frontier with Castile, and it gives us a 50% discount, so we'll go for that, plus it's got high support, so it's likely to pass. So we'll go for this. 43% already, and if we look at our fortification, we can see that the middle obviously is unprotected because we got rid of some forts. Now, looking at the topography, I can see here Porto Alegre is a good place to build one, so we will build a fort here in Porto Alegre, hopefully for reduced cost. Exactly that. Fantastic. That's the only one we'll build, but I think it will just help to shore up the front just in case, and I can see that Castile are on the same path as well. And then also, whilst we're in the Parliament, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to deal with one of the privileges, specifically communal lands. We've got enough stability for it, so we can do that. We'll also have a look and see if there's any specific privilege we might want to give them. Okay, so the one we can give them is access to royal and ecclesiastical courts. Legal representation of less fortunate is a vital aspect of a just and balanced society. Public and religious courts should therefore handle legal disputes between commoners and the elites as fairly as possible. Costs a little bit of legitimacy, annoys the clergy a little bit, but their equilibrium is really high, so we can do that, and pushes us towards communalism, which we're okay with, plus gets their baseline up to 50%, so happy days. To get the support up to 50%, we will give the burghers plutocratic support, because that's also what we're trying to do. Loses a bit of legitimacy, but we are pumping money into it. If I pop to our budget, you can see we're pumping a lot of money into it just to get it back to that full 100. And finally, we'll also shift Beatrice across to Beira Litoral for control purposes. And we've had a scandal. A minor scandal has occurred in Lisbon during the current debate. It seems that rather than attending the sessions personally, some members of the Parliament were out disturbing the peace and harassing their fellow countrymen. The outrage is great, both among peers and in the streets, and the incident is likely to haunt future parliaments for years. So we could let it slide, or we could take the 5% support. It will do it because it's still just about enough. And using our diplomatic action, we're actually going to invite some settlers from Aragon to the Azores, just to try and bump up the population there. Okay, and nothing further came up with the Parliament, so it has now passed. So we have reduced fort maintenance, which is great, for the next 10 years. And obviously the main focus of that was to get this fort here in Porto Alegre, which is building. And we researched standardized coins, so we've got a bit of extra minting threshold. That should allow us to, I think it automatically does it actually, it allows us to mint a little bit of extra money. We need to pick a new research. Okay, so I think we can start beelining towards pursuing the waves. So we'll go for distant markets, and then we'll go for pursuing the waves, which just helps with exploration and also our colonial range. So that might actually get us to Cape Verde, now that I think about it. So distant markets. As our economy grows, new opportunities arise, whereas before short distance trade routes were very profitable, longer distance routes have recently started to bring in more money. Our merchant vessels are now sailing farther away for the best offers. And we'll queue up pursuing the waves as well. It seems the land is not enough for part of our populace. Some people look at the sea and feel saudade, as if it was a long-lost lover. The ports and docks bustle with eager sailors, all enrolling in expeditions as if they were drunk with a desire to explore the world. We will make great use of these eager seafarers. And I have been looking into what we need to do to expand into new markets and have merchants. And simply put, it appears that we need to get trading offices and overseas trading posts. So where we could build it, I think, out of preference, probably London, start building in the London market, just because I think that will help us to connect with the North European markets, and then probably also the Barcelona market, because it's valued at quite a high level, and it will help us to start to mark our footprint in the Mediterranean as well. So let's see if we can build one there too. So we'll build one directly in Barcelona, as it's the capital and also the market center. We'll improve opinion with the Castilians, not my ideal course of action, but we want to keep them sweet just to make sure that they're not going to come and smack us in the face. And unfortunately, a disaster has struck one of our colonies. Many settlers have died and yet more have returned home. This is a disaster, and we may even lose our colony. That's absolutely not going to happen, so we'll spend the 4 ducats. The first settlement on Santa Cruz dos Flores has begun to take shape, but there are many more islands to discover, and the race between the European powers to conquer the New World has begun.